Can you have a healthy relationship with a narcissist? And why this psychologist thinks the answer is maybe. My name's Ruth Ann. I'm a clinical psychologist and an expert in relationships and issues of narcissism. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how people who might be narcissistic and people who might be in relationship with someone who's narcissistic can work together to improve their relationship. But I do want to make one thing very, very clear. Can I have a healthy relationship with someone who's abusing me? And can I have a healthy relationship with someone who's a narcissist? Those are two different questions. You cannot, will not, ever have a healthy relationship with someone who's abusing you. However, people who have narcissistic personality disorder or NPD or narcissistic traits are not one homogeneous group of people. They vary in how severe their behaviors are. They vary in how intense they are, how pervasive they are. And so it's not one thing. I also think it's not helpful to think about relationships as being healthy and unhealthy. All relationships have ups and downs, and it's more of a spectrum between healthier and less healthy. All of us can help to nurture our relationships to be more healthy by tending to them and paying attention to them. So if you have narcissistic personality disorder or narcissistic traits, you are likely someone who experiences deep, deep shame about any weakness or vulnerability or making a mistake. And in order to cope with that, you may have developed different modes, different ways of coping. You may have developed ways to detach, to cut yourself off from difficult feelings, whether that's through being very absent and detached or by engaging in substance abuse or highly stimulating behavior in order to basically get away from difficult feelings and difficult emotions. You may have ways of cutting yourself off from someone that you're close to because you don't want to feel vulnerable to them, or you don't want them to see you as weak or as having needs. Because perhaps when you were growing up, having needs or being vulnerable just wasn't something that was safe to be. It's very common when I work with people who have tendencies towards narcissism that they've had a quite neglectful childhood at times. Even if they've had lots of goodies and they've had privilege in some ways, they've often experienced a lot of emotional neglect and really been left to their own devices a lot. They have a lot of freedom to do what they like, but actually that freedom's a kind of neglect because they're not having their needs met for healthy boundaries and healthy limits and safety. And so very often you might develop a very hyper-autonomous mode that basically is hyper-independent and keeps other people at a distance. Other ways that people who have NPD cope is by being grandiose, by showing off, by being extraordinary and impressive. Sometimes they can be belligerent and condescending and cut people down, really as a means to not feel vulnerable, to not allow their own weakness to be seen, because that would be shameful. And so they can be very critical and condescending as partners under certain situations. But you may also have a healthy adult mode, a healthy adult side that may be there from experiences that you've had, but can also be nurtured through therapy and through good relationships. And through building a healthy adult, you might be able to take a step back. And something that I think is really key in relationships is being able to tell the story, being able to narrate your experience and explain what's going on to yourself and hopefully to the person that you're in a close relationship with. And that might sound like I'm feeling criticized and it's taking me back to the times when I was little and even minor criticism came with intense, outsized punishment. Or I feel anxious and sad and I don't like that feeling because I was so neglected as a child that I became super autonomous. And when I feel anxious and sad, I think you're going to see me as weak and as pathetic and as needy, and you're going to feel contempt towards me. That is an incredibly courageous thing to do. And I don't want to underestimate what it is for someone with NPD to do this, to share that kind of vulnerability with someone else is terrifying. It's like asking someone to jump off a cliff with no safety net and trust that everything will be okay and that they're not going to be humiliated and devastated. But if you can have the courage to begin to do that, and often it's a gradual process where you kind of go test the waters a little bit and build up bit by bit, you can certainly develop a healthier adult who's able to narrate your experiences, take care of you, and communicate from a calmer, healthier place in a relationship. And it gives you the best possible chance to stay as a healthy adult and connect with your partner rather than bringing out some of the coping modes, like becoming detached and withdrawing and cutting off, or becoming critical and condescending, or becoming neglectful of your partner, or angry and raging towards your partner. Now, for someone who might be in a relationship with someone with NPD, can you have a healthy relationship? Well, I think it depends which part of this person you meet, which part you spend your time with. If you meet a very detached person, the detached protector mode, who's cutting other people out and keeping everyone at a distance, no, it's not possible to have a healthy relationship with that mode. What if you meet the grandiose mode, the show off, the impressive one? No, it's not possible to have a healthy relationship with that mode either. It might be a fun mode on occasion, but ultimately it's not a mode that you're going to be able to form a close and intimate attachment with. The only way you can develop a healthy relationship with anyone is to relate to their healthy adult from your healthy adult and to foster that together and to commit to understanding each other's vulnerabilities and to being mindful and compassionate towards them. If you're relating to the coping modes, you're just going to end up feeling iced out, shut out, criticized, talked down to, and humiliated. And you can often find yourself feeling invisible in these kinds of relationships. I also think it's very important for someone who's in a relationship with someone who's highly narcissistic to reflect on themselves, to think about their own childhood experiences and their own modes. Maybe you have a people-pleasing mode that tries to keep everything okay, that tries to keep the peace and avoid conflict. That might work pretty well for someone who's highly narcissistic coping modes because they don't get challenged, they don't get held accountable. How very convenient. Or maybe you have a quiet and submissive mode that disappears and pretends that you don't have any needs either. You become very undemanding, but ultimately you become invisible, unseen, unheard, unvalued, unloved, and you end up disappearing. And that might kind of suit a narcissistic person's coping modes, to have someone who's not challenging them, who's not making demands of them, who's not even really seeing them, who's just kind of pleasing them and placating them and keeping quiet. You may also have an angry defensive mode that begins to create arguments and conflict and stands up for yourself, but in a way that's quite anxious and demanding, and ultimately ends up with you feeling like you haven't brought your best self to the relationship and feeling quite ashamed of how you've ended up behaving. Even if it's understandable in the context of the relationship that the triggers and the way you were treated was appalling, you can still end up feeling quite ashamed of yourself and how you've acted. And ultimately, in that situation, whilst your anger and frustration is entirely valid, you probably haven't brought your best, sturdy, healthy adult to the relationship. So you too need to nurture your own vulnerable child. You need to nurture yourself and take care of your needs and become a healthy parent who can tune into your needs and communicate them in a way that is calm, is unapologetic and undefensive, where you're able also at times to narrate the experience of being with this other person. You're able to say, whoa, you know what? I feel so distant. I feel so shut down right now. And if you know them well, and you're able to have a shared language where you're able to say, I think you're doing the thing where you cut yourself off and you disappear and I'm feeling abandoned and alone. And that may make me anxious. It may make me needy. It may make me demanding of you. It may make me very anxious of you. And I also know that when you're doing that, there's something going on for you. That underneath that, maybe you're feeling anxious about something. Let's us work together so we can both meet each other's needs in the interest of our relationship. And if you're able to do that calmly and without defensiveness and without apology, it really can be a very confident thing to do. You're going to learn very quickly whether or not it's possible to build a healthy relationship with someone, because their response to that will tell you everything that you need to know. Is it possible to have a healthy relationship with a narcissist? In my opinion, there are situations in which that is the case, and I hope this video has given you some ideas of how you can foster healthier relationships, whether you're someone who struggles with issues of narcissism or someone who loves someone who struggles with issues of narcissism. I'd love to hear what you think, so leave a comment. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you'd like to hear more from me. I look forward to seeing you next time. In the meantime, take good care.